What's up, world? I'm Cameron McKinney, and this is Pop Culture Spotlight, a podcast about the movie Frankenstein. Here's a quick synopsis. Dr. Victor Frankenstein is obsessed with his experiment to bring life, but when he becomes successful, he begins to fear and resent his own creation. The film stars Oscar Isaac, Jacob Elordi, Mia Goth, Christoph Waltz, and Felix Kammerer. Standout performances. There's a real split about how people feel towards Oscar Isaac as an actor. There are people who have only seen him in giant studio movies, including the three Star Wars sequel films, playing Poe Dameron, X-Men Apocalypse as the titular Apocalypse, and the Disney Plus Marvel television series Moon Knight as the superhero with dissociative identity disorder. And if that's all you've seen him in, I fully understand not being all that impressed. Isaac has done his best work in smaller films, including Inside Llewyn Davis from the Coen brothers, A Most Violent Year from J.C. Chandor, and Ex Machina from Alex Garland. Watch those three movies and you'll get why many like myself think very highly of Isaac as an actor. In Frankenstein, he plays Victor Frankenstein, who, to put it mildly, has a bit of an ego, and not to spoil the movie, but the end, he realizes he's the problem. Isaac really sells his arc well. Frankenstein is the kind of movie I want to see Oscar Isaac in, working with top-notch directors the caliber of Guillermo Del Toro. Some will sell you on this idea that this movie has the first great performance given by Jacob Elordi in a film. My response to that would be, watch Saltburn Priscilla and On Swift Horses. One could make the argument this is his best. In Frankenstein, he's tasked with playing the monster, and he far and away gives the best performance in the movie. Part 2 of the film is the most captivating, and that's in no small part due to Elordi. I think you can have a real debate about whether or not this guy is going to end up being a major movie star, because in 2025, it's really hard to be a major movie star, but you can no longer question the fact that we are talking about one of the best young actors working today. And this is something I talk about so much on this podcast. The reason he is having success right now is because he is making director-driven choices. That is how Leonardo DiCaprio became Leonardo DiCaprio. That is how Timothée Chalamet became Timothée Chalamet. Yes, you want to be as good as you can in any kind of movie, but I think it's most important to be good in a good movie that a lot of people are going to see. And that is what is happening right now with Jacob Elordi. All of the talk about Frankenstein is about his performance, because a lot of people have seen this movie because it was made by Guillermo Del Toro. This is how young actors become movie stars. They work with the best directors of the time. That is why I'm really hyped for The Odyssey, to see Tom Holland work with Christopher Nolan, because that film could change the perception of Tom Holland. He could go from being just the guy who plays Spider-Man to a guy who can sell a movie and be thought of as a lead for other great filmmakers. And when it comes to Jacob Elordi, the perception of him is changing. He's no longer just the young actor from the Kissing Booth films and Euphoria. He is being taken seriously. Upcoming movies for Jacob Elordi include Wuthering Heights with Margot Robbie and The Dog Stars with Margaret Qualley. And finally, Mia Goth has cemented herself as the queen of horror with X, Pearl, Maxine, and Infinity Pool, and she's great in those movies. And I don't want to say she's being typecast, but I do want to see her in more non-horror films. I thought she was very good in Frankenstein, but wasn't given a ton to do. It's just not her movie. Mia Goth will next be in Christopher Nolan's star-studded adaptation of The Odyssey and Star Wars Starfighter with Ryan Gosling from director Sean Levy. Guillermo Del Toro is one of those directors who doesn't have one type of movie he makes over and over again. He's made comic book movies with Blade 2 and Hellboy 1 and 2, a giant sci-fi in Pacific Rim, a gothic romance in Crimson Peak, a stop-motion animated version of Pinocchio, and what makes him the perfect director for Frankenstein is the fact that he's made monster movies with Pan's Labyrinth and The Shape of Water. I also have to say that we are talking about a filmmaker that is on an all-time run, in my opinion. These are his last 3 movies: Nightmare Alley, which has a great leading performance from Bradley Cooper and a great supporting turn from Cate Blanchett. His Pinocchio is one of the best recent animated films to retell a well-known fairy tale in your own vision and pull it off is beyond impressive. And with Frankenstein, he made a great-looking film filled with emotion. Nobody else is making movies the way this guy does. His name just does not get brought up enough. When you're talking about the best directors working today, you should be talking about Guillermo Del Toro, as well as the Christopher Nolans and the Denis Villeneuves. My take on Frankenstein: this movie just really worked on me. It's one of the best looking movies of the year, and I think it has one of the best scenes of the year. The final confrontation between Issac's Frankenstein and Elordi's monster, that's where it all comes together. For me, 2 actors at the top of their game. For the most part, Frankenstein has gotten good reviews, but there are some critics out there who are critical of it. One complaint I've heard about the film is that it's too straightforward and not weird enough for a Guillermo Del Toro film, and I got to say, I don't get that. This is a guy who makes movies with a clear vision, and in some ways it feels like his other films, and in other ways it doesn't. I'd also like to add that for the second straight film, he is retelling a story that's been told hundreds and hundreds of times. First it was with Pinocchio. Again, that's a fairy tale. There's been so many filmic versions of that, and the same goes for Frankenstein. And for my money, he made 2 of the best versions of both of those tales. I mean, yes, maybe it's fair to say that you wanted a writer-director of Guillermo Del Toro's stature to be making original films, but compare his versions of these stories to other versions, and there almost is no comparison. They're just way better. And I'd also say it's also fair to state that this is a guy who seems to be more interested in the technical aspects of filmmaking than the plot of the movies themselves, and I'm A-okay with that. There are plenty of other movies out there that are more about the plot, but there aren't that many movies that look as good as the movie Frankenstein. I think now's a good time to talk about the fact that this is a Netflix movie. This was not a movie released wide in movie theaters. I think this is the good of Netflix, that they empower a director like this. And yes, maybe you can say they're doing it for the wrong reasons. They're letting Guillermo Del Toro make his version of Frankenstein because they're starving for an Oscar. So what? He's being allowed to make this movie. He also made Pinocchio for Netflix. I also think the good of a movie like this being on Netflix is that we're actually talking about the movie and not its lack of success or success at the box office. Like, I'm just so tired of every movie coming out and it only being about the box office and never about the movie itself. With Frankenstein, people are talking about whether or not they actually liked the film. And I find that to be refreshing. I mean, there's a slew of movies out there that I don't really know if they're good or not. All I really know about them is that they are box office bombs, because that's how movies are being reported on now when they are in movie theaters. So yes, the saving grace of Netflix is it's just about the movie. That is the only thing you can talk about. You talk about Jacob Elordi's performance. You talk about Guillermo Del Toro as a director, because that's the only thing that there is. There is none of this box office. There is none of this, is this movie a hit? Some of the reactions towards Frankenstein reminds me of the reactions of Robert Eggers' Nosferatu, a movie that I really liked but did not love. And I see the similarities between those two things because, like Frankenstein, Nosferatu is a story that's been told over and over again. And a lot of the talk about that movie was the fact that people wanted more from Robert Eggers because they think so highly of him as a filmmaker. They want to see him make original horror films, make movies that they've never seen before. In both instances, these were just directors obsessed with retelling these stories. Robert Eggers was obsessed with retelling Nosferatu, and Guillermo Del Toro was obsessed with telling the story of Frankenstein. And I really do see some of the exact same divide that was on Nosferatu. I mean, some people look at Nosferatu as one of the best movies that Robert Eggers has ever made. I am not one of those people. I like The Lighthouse and The Northman way more. But when it comes to Frankenstein, I do think we are talking about one of the better films made by Guillermo Del Toro. I am way higher on Frankenstein than I was on Nosferatu. I think this is a filmmaker at the top of his game. And he got, in my humble opinion, 2 great performances in this movie. Yes, I think Oscar Isaac is great in this movie. I don't think he's getting nearly enough credit. And I'm in agreement with everyone that Jacob Elordi gives one of the best performances of the year as the monster. But maybe I'm not like most fans of Guillermo Del Toro. I mean, I loved Crimson Peak, I loved Nightmare Alley, and I absolutely loved Pinocchio. Talking a little bit more about Jacob Elordi, I think it's worth noting that he almost wasn't in this movie, that the original choice to play the monster was none other than Andrew Garfield. And I got to say, it's really hard to imagine him in this movie, and I am one of his biggest fans. I mean, I think he is one of the best actors of his generation. I just don't know if he would have fit into this movie as well and completely taken it over the way that Elordi does. When I first heard about this movie, I was like, why would I want to see a major movie star play the monster? Is this going to be one of those cases where you're looking at the monster and going, I can't even tell that's Andrew Garfield, or I can't even tell that's Jacob Elordi? And that's not the case. The arc of the character makes him the heart and soul of the movie in a way that I was really surprised by. The fact that the role of the monster really is all about the performance and the interactions between Elordi and Oscar Isaac. My takeaway is that Guillermo Del Toro, Oscar Isaac, and Jacob Elordi just elevated the material in a way that I never thought possible, and that's why I'm impressed and why I really do think we are talking about one of the best movies of 2025. Because what I felt in Frankenstein is this, that no other director was capable of making this movie in this way and getting that kind of performance out of Jacob Elordi. Yes, he could have been decent in another director's version of Frankenstein, but he could not have been this incredible without it being the version that he's in, the one made by Guillermo Del Toro. I am surprised by the detractors of this movie. Like, what more did you want from this? What were you looking for in a Guillermo Del Toro Frankenstein movie? Because I got what I wanted and then more. I mean, my only minor complaint is that I wanted more from Mia Goth and Christoph Waltz. Like, I really do believe we're talking about a two-hander here. It's all about Isaac and Elordi. Nobody else is really given a whole lot to do. I also guess some people don't love the look of Jacob Elordi's monster. I mean, what are you expecting in 2025? I thought it was as realistic as you could possibly get. I mean, I just don't know what you wanted. Did you want him to look scarier? I thought he was scary at times. I guess I just fall on, this is the movie that this should be. Like, this is the movie I wanted it to be. It was better than I expected. Oscar chances. Frankenstein is going to be a major contender in almost every category, but I don't know if it's a movie that's going to walk away with many awards. Right now, Elordi feels like a good choice for Best Supporting Actor, but he's going up against the likes of Sean Penn, Benicio del Toro, and Adam Sandler. I just don't know if right now is the actor's time to win. But we are at a point where I would be shocked if Jacob Elordi was not nominated for Best Supporting Actor. I think this is the beginning of him going on a run. He gets a nomination here, and who knows, in a few years, he might walk away with a trophy. I definitely think Frankenstein is going to get one of the 10 slots for Best Picture, and it's well deserving of that honor. No, I don't think it's going to win, nor should it. I don't think it's the best movie of the year, but I definitely think it's one of the 10 best. And as of this moment, I do believe Guillermo Del Toro is going to get a Best Director nomination. This has to be said, it has been an incredible year for directors of horror films. Like, I would almost nominate solely directors who have made horror movies this year. Danny Boyle for 28 Years Later, Zach Kreger for Weapons, Ryan Coogler for Sinners, and Del Toro for Frankenstein. I think of that list, the only two people who are going to get nominated are Coogler and Del Toro. I don't think Kreger's going to get in. Danny Boyle has absolutely no shot. We are at a point in the culture where the movies that are being seen and talked about are mainly horror movies, and the directors of these movies are elevating them in a way that cannot be ignored. Yes, I'm fully on board with Paul Thomas Anderson finally winning an Oscar for One Battle After Another. He's going to walk away with everything, and I think he should. But let's not forget the fact that all of these great filmmakers are making some of the best movies of their careers, and they're making them in the horror genre. I'm really curious to see where the major players of this movie go from here. I know that Guillermo del Toro has spoke about in interviews how he wants to make different kinds of movies. For Oscar Isaac, like I said earlier, all I want from him is to be in movies directed by great filmmakers. Work with the Christopher Nolans of the world. Make another film with Alex Garland. And for Jacob Elordi, the next big test is the leading man test. Like, is he going to be given opportunities to be the lead in giant studio movies? Wuthering Heights is going to be an interesting case study, but he's sharing that movie with Margot Robbie. Is this guy going to get to a point where people go, I'm going to go see this movie in a movie theater because Jacob Elordi is in this movie? And one of the ways we could get there is if he wins the Oscar, which is not out of the realm of possibility. I mean, you're going to be seeing a lot of him in 2026. He's got 2 movies on the way, and the 3rd season of Euphoria is finally going to arrive. What I like most about him right now is he's making some surprising choices with the characters he's played. I mean, Elvis in a Sofia Coppola movie, the monster in Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. Over the last couple of years, he is really showing his range as an actor. In the end, Guillermo del Toro's version of Frankenstein feels like a movie that nobody is mixed on. They either love it like me and think it's one of the best movies of 2025, or they just don't have time for it. It's just not their kind of movie. Like, I haven't heard one reaction to this movie being like, it's just okay. You either think it's one of the best movies of the year or believe it's a complete waste of everyone's time. It's the extreme reactions to it that I find endlessly fascinating. And I get it somewhat. People are holding Guillermo del Toro to such high standards because of who he is and the movies that he's made. But look around the movie year of 2025 and tell me there are that many movies better than the film Frankenstein. You can't. Everything about this movie is precise. The structure, there's no wasted scenes. There's no wasted element. This is a director that knew what he was doing. This is confident filmmaking at its absolute best. Frankenstein was a movie that I just didn't really know what to expect. I didn't know what the performance of the monster given by Elordi was going to be like. Now I do. It's a movie and a performance that completely blew me away. Del Toro, Elordi, and Issac deserve all the praise in the world. The last thing I'll say is this: the movie Frankenstein made me an even bigger fan fan of Guillermo Del Toro. Thanks for listening to this edition of Pop Culture Spotlight. I'm Cameron McKinney, and there'll be a new episode of the podcast every Thursday on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I highly recommend you check out the movie Frankenstein. Next week on the podcast, I'm talking about Black Phone 2 from writer-director Scott Derrickson, starring Mason Thames, Madeline McGraw, and Ethan Hawke. So tune into that, and please rate, review, and subscribe.